thrones of sand, power, pride, and a world waiting for mercy. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine Arabia before Islam. Not as a map, not as dates and names, but as a living world. A world where people woke up every morning under a burning sun, where survival was never guaranteed, where honor could mean life, and humiliation could mean death. A world where some men ruled with crowns, and others ruled with nothing but their tribe behind them. And in the middle of it all stood Mecca, not rich, not mighty, but sacred. And somewhere in that sacred land, a child was about to be born who would change everything. But before we reach that moment, we must understand the rulers who came before him. Because Arabia was not empty. It was full of power struggles, foreign domination, and hearts quietly tired of darkness. Two kinds of rulers, and neither brought peace. Before Islam, Arabia had two kinds of leaders. One, crowned kings. These existed in Yemen, Heerah, and Ghassan in Syria. They looked powerful, but in truth, their crowns were heavy with dependence. Many of them were not truly free. Their kingdom survived because Persia or Byzantium allowed them to survive. They were kings, but not independent kings. 2. Tribal chiefs. The rest of Arabia was ruled by tribal leaders, and these men, they were not kings in name, but they were kings in reality. Their word was law. Their pride was the tribe's pride. Their enemies were everyone's enemies, and their people obeyed them completely in war and in peace. Arabia was not one nation. It was 1,000 loyalties, and loyalties when divided can become a curse. Yemen, the kingdom that once sparkled. If you had visited Yemen in its golden age, you would not have believed it was part of Arabia. Yemen was different. It had farms, water, cities, trade, civilization. It was the crown jewel of the peninsula. The people of Sheba were among the oldest of the pure Arabs. Their story goes back thousands of years. They built one of the greatest engineering wonders of Arabia, the Dam of Marib. And for centuries, that dam fed their land like a heartbeat. It gave them stability. It gave them wealth. It gave them pride. But history has a painful habit. It humbles the proud. Slowly, Yemen began to weaken. Trade routes shifted. Rome controlled the seas. The Nabateans controlled the north. And inside Yemen itself, tribal rivalries began tearing the people apart. Imagine watching your homeland decline, not because of one enemy, but because brothers turned against brothers. And when a society begins to fight itself, outsiders don't need to conquer it. They simply wait. Then came the disaster. The Dam of Marib cracked. At first, maybe people ignored it. Maybe they said, it will hold. Maybe they said, it has always held. But then, it collapsed. And the flood that followed was not just water. It was grief. It was ruin. It was the destruction of a civilization. Homes were destroyed. Fields were drowned. Families were forced to migrate. Imagine standing in the wreckage of your own city, looking at what was once your life, and realizing you must leave. And so Yemen's tribes scattered across Arabia. Some went north, some went to Hijaz, some went to Syria. They carried their names, their pride, their memories, and their wounds. This is why Arabia became a land of migrations, a land of displaced tribes searching for stability, but never truly finding it. The Fire of Najran. But Yemen's tragedy did not stop there. In 523 CE, a ruler named Dunawas attacked the Christians Najran. He wanted to force them to convert. They refused, so trenches were dug, fire was lit, and people were thrown into it alive. Let that sink in. Human beings burned because they refused to abandon their faith. The Quran later referenced this horror. Cursed were the people of the ditch. Chapter 85, verse 4. This event shook the region. It provoked the Christian world. It provoked Rome. And it opened the door for Abyssinia, Ethiopia, to invade Yemen. Yemen fell again. Foreign soldiers walked its streets, and the land that once ruled itself became a pawn. Then came Abraha, a man who thought he could destroy the sacred. Abraha was a strong and ambitious man who rose to power in Yemen. He looked at Mecca and he didn't see holiness. He saw influence. He saw pilgrims. He saw power. And he wanted that power in Yemen. So he marched with an army and elephants to demolish the Kaaba. The plan was arrogant, it was loud, it was terrifying, and for the people of Mecca, it must have felt like the end. Because what could a small desert town do against elephants? But Allah does not protect his house with armies. Allah protects his house with his will. Abraha's army was destroyed, and that year became famous forever, the year of the elephant. And in that same year, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. Heerah, the Arab kingdom under Persia's shadow. Now shift your eyes to Iraq, to Heerah. This was an Arab kingdom, but under Persian dominance. Persia was too powerful to ignore, too organized, too wealthy. But the Persians understood something important. Arabs could not be ruled like city people. You could not control them directly. So they used a strategy. They appointed Arab kings to rule other Arabs. The Lakhmid kings became Persia's shield, protecting borders, controlling tribes, and keeping the desert from spilling into Persian lands. But court politics is a poisonous thing. Kings rose, kings fell. Some were removed because they refused Persian ideology. Some were destroyed because of rumors and accusations. One king, An-Numan, was summoned to the Persian palace, and he never returned alive. Before leaving, he entrusted his family and wealth to an Arab chief, Hani ibn Masud. When Persia demanded that trust be handed over, Hani refused, and Persia declared war. Dhee Qar, the first time Arabs broke Persia's pride. The battle took place at Dhee Qar, and it was brutal. For the first time in history, Arab tribes defeated Persian forces. Imagine what that felt like, a people who had always been treated as weaker, always pushed aside, always used as pawns, suddenly standing victorious. It was not a world-changing victory yet, but it was a sign, a crack in the wall, a whisper from history. The old order is weakening. And this happened shortly after the birth of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Syria, Arabs living under Byzantium's influence. In the northwest, near Syria, Arab tribes like the Ghassanids lived under Byzantium influence. They were respected, they were organized, they defended borders, but their authority was borrowed. They were like a lamp lit by someone else's flame, and when Byzantium weakened, the lamp dimmed. Later, during the Caliphate of Omar radiallahu anhu, the Battle of Yarmouk would end their era. Another kingdom, another throne, another power that seemed strong until it wasn't. Mecca, a different kind of authority. Now we return to Mecca,
And here, the story feels different, because Mecca had no empire behind it, no army, no palaces, no kings. Mecca was powerful for one reason only: the Kaaba, the sacred house, the legacy of Ibrahim alayhis salam, the memory of the pure call to Allah. Even though the Arabs had filled it with idols, even though they had drifted from true monotheism, they still respected it, they still feared it, they still honored it. Jurham's fall and the buried Zamzam. For centuries, Jurham ruled Mecca. But power corrupts. They began abusing pilgrims, they extorted sacred wealth, they mistreated visitors of the house of Allah, and eventually they were expelled. But before leaving, they did something shocking. They filled the well of Zamzam. They